More on this. We're joined now in the studio by Ammar Kahf, who's the Executive Director of the Omran Centre for Strategic Studies. Thank you very much for coming in to talk to us. How surprising is it that this convoy has come under attack?
Not very surprising. The regime forces and its allies are very fragile. And unfortunately, the Russians have been investing in a failed system, in a failed military, in non-state actors that cannot be controlled. If we're talking about ISIS as a threat, you have at least 41, some estimates up to 62 militias on the regime side, which are way far more aggressive and uncontrollable than other forces. And imagine the threat of ISIS that has been threatening all over the world. Imagine if those go uncontrolled. And so I'm not very surprised. Unfortunately, the Russians are unable to guarantee. Now they've threatened that they would shoot anyone who threatens those convoys. I'm not sure how serious they are in this, but this is an unfortunate situation.
Do you think Moscow is going to be angered by what's happened here?
Unfortunately, Moscow has other calculations. They always view the world in terms of how the U.S. reacts and how other countries react, rather than what really stabilizes the situation on the ground. They've invested in a failed system. They invested in those non-state actors, those criminal militias, and those have gone uncontrolled. I hope that they would realize that this investment is in the wrong place.
Their investment has led to the Syrian regime, it appears, almost certainly recapturing Aleppo. What do you think is going to happen next? Not just in eastern Aleppo or the city there, but the context of the war as a whole. I remember Assad said that he wants to reunite the entire country.
I mean, capturing territory without its people is really not a victory. So even if he goes to other regions to recapture Idlib or say other regions, it will be massive bloodshed and evacuations of people and complete demographic change, which will impact the refugee pouring into other countries. It will impact security on all countries. You see ISIS going to Palmyra again, threatening Turkey in that sense. And so the situation is very volatile and very fragile. And so when you talk about supporting the regime, there is no unified structure for this so-called regime. There is no state structure. It is all controlled now by militias.
Because a number of these people being evacuated from eastern Aleppo, I believe, are heading potentially to Idlib. And if the regime then turns its focus on Idlib, it goes after those very same people that are being evacuated.
I mean, the first reports that they were being sent to northern Aleppo. They might be sent to areas of the Euphrates Shield, perhaps. These are all options that are still available. And the Iranians are trying to bargain this with Kafraya and Fu'ad to get some of their people out. I'm not sure how there's so many partners or so many actors on the ground that are conflicting on the side of the regime.
And do you feel then that, as you talk about that coalition, it's quite unstable and it's quite weak, that as that coalition gets closer to what they perceive as a victory, those differences, those cracks will become heightened and become wider?
Obviously, and this is what we see now in how the ceasefire has been announced and broken and announced and broken so many times in the last 24 hours. It is obvious that the regime cannot control its factions, and the militias are uncontrollable by any actor on the ground. And so this is a real question for the Russians that have invested. The U.S. has withdrawn from this situation, and so there's only one actor that can be blamed today, which is Russia, that has invested in those actors.
Okay, thank you very much, Ammar Kahf. Thank you for coming in and talking to us.
Thank you.